I'll quickly go over rolling circle replication, although I'm aware of that you people have studied, but let's quickly revise. So, rolling circle replication is mostly common in plasmids, not in chromosomes. So, can you tell me why?
Because the
Class,
chromosomes are linear in nature.
chromosomes are not linear in nature. Oh,
Sorry, not
chromosomes are
not not
circular.
linear, but yeah. Sorry.
Chromosomes are circular, plasmids are also circular. Chromosomes are linear, but then even though they are linear, they do not replicate by rolling circle model. And so replication has nothing to do with the I mean, there are linear plasmids, there are circular plasmids, there are linear chromosomes, there are circular chromosomes. So think about it like why plasmids replicate by rolling circle replication and not chromosomes. So if we look at the structure of rolling circle replicating plasmids, they have actually two origins. One is called DSO, which is double-stranded origin, and the other one is called as SSO, which is single-stranded origin. So the initiator protein is Rep, and this Rep protein actually exists as a dimer. I think I'll show you the other figure because in that one, yes, maybe this one is better. So the Rep protein, as you see, it exists as a dimer, and the Rep protein binds to this ORI, which is actually DSO. So this ORI is actually DSO, which is depicted over here. DSO is double-stranded origin. So this Rep protein binds to the origin of replication, the double-stranded origin of replication, which actually contains a hairpin loop, and the Rep protein binds to the loop region of the hairpin and actually makes a nick. The moment it makes a nick, then what happens is that the enzymes like DNA polymerase 3, PCRA helicase, and single stranded binding protein act, and this is better visualized in this figure actually. So you see that as a result of this cleavage, this 3' hydroxyl group is available now, and onto this 3' hydroxyl group, this now serves as a template, and then DNA polymerase 3 starts synthesizing a fresh strand, a new strand, and thereby you will have the strand replaced, which is shown over here, right? And the new strand is synthesized. So this is rolling circle replication, and the unique feature of this mechanism is that single stranded DNA is produced when you have rolling circle replication of plasmids. So this can be easily checked by I mean, if you want to study the mechanism of replication of plasmids, whether it is rolling circle or whether it is theta, a quick experiment that can be planned is you can simply perform southern blotting, and you can perform southern blotting under two conditions, one under denaturing conditions and one under non-denaturing conditions. So under non-denaturing conditions, if you see a signal, because single-stranded DNA will be there, so that means the plasmid is replicating by a rolling circle mechanism. So this is like a standard.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, I have a question. Like, we have learned that, like, in this case also the replication, no, the single stranded doesn't remain single stranded. There is another polymerase which extend which go
Yes, that is,
yes,
yes,
which
yes,
makes it double stranded, and
Ratnesh, yes,
yes.
Ratnesh, that is true, and that is the next step. So I have explained you only this part of the figure. So once you have the single-stranded DNA, which is shown over here, then it is acted upon by the enzyme called RNA polymerase. So this is important for you to remember that RNA polymerase can synthesize RNA in a template-dependent manner. That means RNA polymerase doesn't require a primer for synthesis. So RNA polymerase will use the DNA as template and make an RNA primer. Onto this RNA primer, the polymerase 3 can actually carry out synthesis of DNA, and the place where it works is single stranded origin, which is called as SSO, and then ultimately single stranded DNA will also become double stranded DNA. But if you see the entire life cycle, where you have DSO as well as SSO. So DSO will also lead to production of single-stranded DNA, which in turn will be acted upon at SSO and it will be converted to double-stranded DNA. But if you want to study, what you do is you isolate replication intermediates, and in this case you will find some strands which are single-stranded. Okay, is it
Ma'am,
clear?
but that will be like very short fragments.
No, these
it,
are
it,
not. No, these are not fragments, Ratnesh.
no,
So
ma'am.
these.
Just let me tell you. So, like this single standard, which comes after this plasmid, that works like a lagging strand, and that for that the replicate for that the DNA then synthesize and become double stranded.
Right.
So in that case, there may be there is just like Okazaki fragments. Very short strands where it is single stranded. Although I know like in M13 that is when replication happens that comes a single stranded. But so in which cases it happens like it becomes double stranded, and in which
Right.
cases it
So
doesn't become it remains single stranded.
right. So what happens is that so there is nothing like Okazaki fragments, because if you remember we discussed that the length of Okazaki fragments is roughly 1000 to 2000 base pairs, right? In
Yes, ma'am.
prokaryotes. So
Yes.
in this case, when it is rolling circle replication, it works in a strand displacement manner. So if you see, this new strand is synthesized and the other one is getting displaced. So this is the single stranded DNA, and this remains single stranded for some time unless it is acted upon by the RNA polymerase. Unless the RNA primer is synthesized, the DNA polymerase cannot carry out synthesis. So the question is, if you try to capture for example, if you grow the cells in log phase, in exponential phase, then the cells are actively replicating, and in such cases you can actually trap the replication intermediates, wherein you will find both single stranded DNA as well as double stranded DNA. Now the question is whether we see fragments. So rolling circle replication mechanism has been observed mostly for small plasmids. So it doesn't occur for large plasmids. There are no reports. As soon as the size of the plasmid crosses a certain extent, you will see that the mechanism is somewhat different. For example, RSF 1010, it doesn't replicate by rolling circle. PCR1, PCR2, 3 and 4, these plasmids are in the range of 1.4 kb, 3.2 kb, 4.4 kb. They replicate by rolling circle mechanism. Is it clear or no?
Yes, ma'am. It is clear.
Okay. So then, since we have discussed bidirectional replication, which is theta, and rolling circle replication, so because Ratnesh wanted some information on eukaryotes as well, so I have included that. Otherwise, we do not cover. So here, the polymerases in eukaryotes are different. But before explaining you this, maybe I'll tell you a few basic differences. So in case of prokaryotes, you usually have single origin. Replication is bidirectional. In case of eukaryotes, you have multiple origin. So this is another big difference. So you have multiple origins in case of eukaryotes, and they can fire simultaneously. They can initiate simultaneously. The replication proteins are, for example, the eukaryotic polymerases that are used are named as alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, and eta. And some of them have 3' to 5' exonuclease activity, and their location is also, for example, some of them are in nucleus, some of them are in other places. So Pol alpha synthesizes the RNA primers during initiation. Pol delta is the main polymerase involved in lagging strand synthesis. Paul, epsilon is again the main polymerase involved in leading strand synthesis. So delta is for lagging and epsilon is for leading. And gamma is involved in, for example, the mitochondrial DNA. The way this works is that proteins are very different. So for eukaryotes there is something called ORC, which is origin recognition complex. So the reason I wanted to show you over here is that the nomenclature of the proteins are different, but then the functioning is similar. So that means here also the origin is region 80. Here instead of the helicase, for example, DNA B was the helicase, if you remember, in case of prokaryotes, but in case of eukaryotes, you have a similar helicase which is hexamer, but the name is MCM27. Just like DNA A and the initiator proteins, here it is called CDC6 and CDT1. Something like this. And then you see that CDC6 and CDT T1 they are removed, but then origin recognition complex remains bound to the origin, and then another set of proteins will come in. So all I want to tell you over here is that the main difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic DNA replication are: one, the origin are multiple, so you have multiple origin of replication. They all can initiate simultaneously. The opening again is based upon the AT-rich sequence. The nomenclature of the proteins are slightly different. For example, instead of DNA B or helicase, you have MCM27. Instead of initiator DNA A, you have CDC6, something like this. And then the polymerases are also named differently, but then they perform more or less similar functions. So
Ma'am, I have
let
a
us.
question.
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
in eukaryotes, origin of replication is predetermined, or it happens like when wherever it wants, it can initiate.
Oh no, it cannot happen wherever. It is predefined.
Okay. Just like prokaryotes,
Just
but
like,
just number
yes,
is
just like prokaryotes, but only thing is that here you have multiple origins.
yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay.
Okay, so then let us quickly discuss the regulation of replication. So initially we will talk about regulation of plasmid replication, and then I'll tell you how the replication of chromosomal DNA is regulated. So the question is why?
Ma'am,
Right.
I have a question, ma'am. Ma'am, I don't understand like what happens in proofreading activity actually. Like, why do we need a 3' to 5' uh, exonuclease activity in proofreading? Can you please explain?
Okay. So proofreading activity we discussed when we were discussing PCR also, if you remember.
Yes, ma'am, but I didn't understand.
Maybe we will come back to it. Let me cover this part. I will
Okay,
write
ma'am.
it.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
I'll write it so that we do not forget. Okay, so then the question is why at all we need to regulate the replication. So the answer is if we do not have mechanisms to regulate the replication, then this replication can happen in a continuous manner. And if the DNA will keep on replicating class, then what will happen is you will have many copies created, but then this will cause a burden on the cell. It will cause a metabolic burden. It will cause a burden on the total DNA load. So therefore the cell will not survive if the DNA will keep on replicating. So the cell has actually developed mechanisms for regulating replication, whether it is plasmid replication or whether it is chromosomal replication. So let us see how first the plasmids are regulated. So mainly there are two mechanisms for regulation. The first one is RNA regulated plasmid replication, and the second one is eteron regulated plasmid replication. So class, have you studied this? Class, are you people there?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
I don't
we
think
haven't
that
started.
we have not started.
Okay, so iterons are direct repeats. So let's see how RNA can regulate plasmid replication, and for that the example of RNA regulated plasmids are Coli1, P15A and PMB1. So Coli1 is a small circular plasmid. This is the map of Coli1 plasmid. So what you can see is that it contains gene for MOB, which is mobilization. It contains an origin of replication, and besides that it contains certain other genes which are responsible for its stability. So let us see how the replication of Coli1 is regulated. So this figure actually shows the origin region of the Coli1 plasmid. Let me make it big. So what is shown in blue class over here is the origin of replication. Okay. Now just upstream to this origin of replication, there is a promoter called P2. Okay. And this P2 promoter actually transcribes an RNA which is called RNA2. Okay. So I think the class at least knows this, that promoters can make RNA, and then we discussed that there are many genes which exist as RNA and some which can be translated to proteins. You remember that? We discussed in some of the initial classes.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So in this case, the
Can you repeat, ma'am?
Huh?
Can you repeat, please?
Yes, so I said that this is the origin of replication, and then over here is a promoter called P2 which transcribes an RNA which is called RNA2. The position of this promoter is at least 555 base pairs upstream to the origin of replication. What is
Ma'am, actually promoter helps in replication. Promoter helps in replication, transcription. It doesn't encode for RNA polymerase, right?
No, hold on. So promoter doesn't encode for RNA polymerase. Promoter
Yes, ma'am.
is not involved in replication. Promoter is something which is required for initiation of transcription.
Of transcription. Yes, ma'am.
So that means transcription means making RNA from DNA.
Yes, ma'am.
So here P2 promoter makes RNA2 from DNA, which is present upstream to the origin of replication.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and this promoter is located 555 base pairs upstream to the origin of replication. Theek?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there is another promoter called P1 promoter, and this promoter is present in the antisense strand. So the top strand is called as sense strand and the bottom strand is called as antisense strand. So there is a promoter which is present in the antisense strand, which is called as P1, which actually makes an RNA which is called RNA1, which is 100 base pairs in length. Up to here it is fine. So there are two promoters P2 and P1. P1 is present in the antisense strand and P2 is present in the sense strand. P2 is present 555 base pairs upstream to the origin of replication and it makes a long RNA2. On the other hand, P1 actually transcribes an RNA which is called RNA1, which is a small RNA of 100 base pairs long. Up to here it is fine?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, so
Yes,
now this P1, the RNA1 is actually called antisense RNA and it acts as a negative regulator. So let us see what is the role of antisense RNA and what is the role of RNA2, which is transcribed by the sense strand. So RNA2 is called the positive regulator and RNA1 is called the negative regulator. Up to here it is fine, everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me see. Dev Priya, Vishantan, Paras, Bhavya, Deepak. Up to here it is fine.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now let us see what happens. So what happens is that this RNA2, the RNA2, if you remember from the previous figure, it's a log RNA. So this RNA2 actually forms loops. So you have a double-stranded stem and then you have a loop. So this RNA loop structure is required to stabilize the RNA DNA hybrid. So what happens is that this RNA2 actually is required for the formation of the RNA DNA hybrid, which is used for the initiation of replication. So that means this RNA2 actually serves as a primer. It provides the 3' hydroxyl group onto which the DNA replication is initiated. So the origin region opens up. You see the replication bubble is formed, and it is this RNA2 which actually serves as the primer for the synthesis of DNA. This RNA2
Yes, ma'am.
conformationally shows several stem loops. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Now what happens is
Ma'am,
that,
I had a question.
yes,
Ma'am, if it was just to serve as a primer, then why did the cell synthesize like 100 base pairs, like 100 bases long RNA?
the RNA1 you mean?
No, ma'am, the yeah, like,
100 base pairs is this one, antisense RNA. This one is a long one.
yeah, ma'am. So, ma'am, like, why did the cell synthesize like such a long RNA if it was just to serve as a primer?
Okay, so you mean that why RNA polymerase cannot simply make the RNA over there?
Uh, yeah, ma'am. Like, why can't this entire thing be conducted with like a short RNA sequence as well,
Right,
like say
right. So I think
20 base?
right. So Vishantan, so this answer, so this will become clearer once you will follow the mechanism of regulation. So many a times you will see that there are many complex events which take place simply to achieve regulation, simply to achieve. There are tiers of regulation, and these things they actually help in achieving that. So let's first understand
Ma'am,
and then maybe it will become clearer.
ma'am, perhaps he
Fine.
is asking like when primage RNA primage is there, which incorporates the primers, then why it is needed, like
Yes,
RNA 2.
right. So that is what. So the answer is because you need regulation. You do not want to make it endlessly. Point number one. Point number two, many a times you do not want the same enzymes to be used for plasmids because you do not want the cell to be overburdened. Primase, the main primase is required for chromosomal replication. For plasmid replication, cell plasmid has its own mechanisms. There are multiple plasmids which do not have, but then there are some plasmids which have developed their own mechanisms, and you will see that how it aids. I mean, in the next few slides you will realize that why and how useful it was to have its own mechanism.
Okay,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes.
So in this case, what happens is that this uh, yeah, so here it shows that RAT2 serves as a primer, and yes, so this is the slide I wanted to show you. So what happens is that the RNA1, which is 108 nucleotides in length, this RNA1 can hybridize to the 5' terminal region of RNA2, and what it does is it disrupts the RNA loops. So that means RNA1 is an antisense RNA which can actually pair with the loops of the RNA2, and it actually pairs with the 5' end. If you see from this figure, this is the 5' end and this is the 3' end. So the pairing happens at the 5' end, and the way the pairing happens is at the loop region mostly. And the moment this RNA1 pairs with RNA2, so at this moment what happens is that because of this pairing of RNA1 with RNA2, the RNA DNA hybrid that was present at the origin of replication, this gets destabilized, and the moment it gets destabilized, the replication gets inhibited. There will be no replication. So therefore RNA1 is actually a negative regulator, because RNA1 is an antisense RNA which can pair with the RNA2, which is required for the initiation of replication. The moment RNA1 pairs with RNA2, the RNA DNA hybrid which is present at the origin of replication gets destabilized, and there will be no replication. Is it clear or no?
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
now the cell has developed a mechanism to ensure this. So what happens is that this RNA1, which is 108 nucleotides in length, the pairing of RNA1 with RNA2 is successful only when the RNA2 is in the range of 100 to 300 nucleotides in length. So the moment the length crosses beyond 360, the moment the length of RNA2 crosses 360, then this pairing of RNA1 cannot destabilize, because the length is now sufficient enough and the RNA2 will be folded and you will have successful initiation. When the length of RNA2 is less than 100, then in this case again RNA1 pairing will not be giving you inhibition, because the length is too less to give you successful inhibition. So therefore this mechanism works only and only when the RNA2 length is between 100 to 360 nucleotides in length. The other point is that the RNA1 and RNA2 hybrid which is formed over here, it is stabilized by a protein which is called as ROP. ROP. ROP is repressor of primer, because this is the primer. The RNA2 is serving as the primer. So the one which stabilizes this RNA1 RNA2 hybrid is called as repressor of primer. So I have a figure to show you this. Okay, so this I have already explained you that without loops RNA2 is not able to form a hybrid. DNA synthesis cannot take place. Then yes, so this actually shows the protein which is called as ROP, repressor of primer. This is also called as ROM, which is RNA1 modulator. So what happens is that this repressor of primer or RNA1 modulator, ROP or ROM, this is 63 amino acids long protein, so it's a tiny small protein, and this serves as a negative regulator. And what people have shown is that this ROM protein, this actually functions by stabilizing the RNA1 RNA2 complex. The moment the RNA1 and RNA2 complex is stabilized, then you know that the number of initiations will be reduced. So it will actually result in inhibition of replication. So that means antisense RNA1 is also the negative regulator, ROP or ROM is also the negative regulator, and RNA2 is the positive regulator. Is it clear? Everybody is quiet.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Ashi, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am, it is clear.
Okay, very good. So then Coli1 derivatives. So this you will see in the lab experiments as well when you will be back in campus. So Coli1 derivatives that lack this ROM protein, they have a higher copy number than the plasmids that have this. So that means there are 15 copies of PBr322, but there are 50 to 100 copies or even 500 copies of PUC19. Both are derived from PBr22, but then one contains ROP gene and one doesn't. So this is how, so this Coli1 replication actually explains that how antisense RNA can help in regulation of replication. Okay, so let's see now.
So, ma'am, this is why even circular plasmid have a regulation in regulation of replication. Otherwise
Yes.
doesn't need circular if it is circular.
No, say it again.
I'm saying like plasmid is circular, then it doesn't need regulation of replication.
Why? Otherwise, it will keep on replicating endlessly.
Ma'am, so
If
what?
the replication is not regulated, then the plasmid will keep on firing, so it will cause a metabolic burden on the cell.
Ma'am, there is a termination region in this in the circular plasmid for that, like ending the replication, and it happens always that it keep on firing at different at different origin of replications, like in theta model. So it
So,
doesn't stop any time, I think.
no, it stops. Who told you it doesn't stop? If it doesn't stop, then imagine what will happen if the chromosome replication initiation. So termination is something different, right? So replication once initiated will terminate, but if it keep on initiating, then imagine how many, it will be a crisis on the replication proteins. It will be a metabolic burden on the cell. Why we say that chromosome is present in 1 to 2 copies? Why we say that we have F plasmid which is present in 1 to 2 copies, we have PBR which is present in 15 to 20 copies, we have POC19 which is present in 500 copies. Why 500? Why not 50? Right? Why chromosome is present in 1 to 2 copies? Why not 100 copies? Because there is a regulation.
Ma'am, that depends on time also. Like for one cycle of replication, there needs to be like a certain amount of time.
No. I mean, what do you mean by time? That time is also
Like
regulated.
for replication, yes, ma'am. So
So
that depends
everything
also
has
on
to, everything is
the speed.
regulated. Otherwise, it will keep happening endlessly.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Right. So replication, whether it's transcription, whether it's translation, it has to be regulated. Otherwise, I mean, regulation is one of the important features of all the fundamental mechanisms, whether it is cell division, whether it is partition, whether it is termination, every step is regulated.
Okay,
Okay.
ma'am. Okay.
Hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I hope Coli-1 regulation by antisense RNA was clear.
Yes, ma'am. It was almost clear.
Almost, but
Yes,
not.
ma'am. It was clear.
Okay. So
It was
let's
clear.
see the replication of another plasmid R1, because in this case it is antisense RNA as well as a protein which is responsible for copy numbered control, and therefore it is called COP-B. So R1 is a large plasmid, 100 kb, and it is a broad host range plasmids. It's a broad host range plasmid. So what you see is that over here is the origin of replication, and over here is the rep A, which is the initiator protein. Rep A is transcribed by a promoter which is called P-rep A, which makes the RNA for rep A, and this RNA is translated into protein. There is another gene which is called as COP. The name COP is given because it is for copy number control. It is for regulation of replication. So that is why these are called as COP in this case. So COP-B is present, and this COP-B is transcribed by a promoter which is called as P-COP-B, which is shown in green. There is an antisense RNA which is transcribed in the antisense strand by another promoter called PCOP-A, and the length of this antisense RNA is 91 nucleotides. So what is noteworthy to see over here is that antisense RNAs are usually smaller in size. For example, in the earlier case it was 108 nucleotides, in this case it is 91 nucleotides. Now the way the regulation takes place in case of plasmid R1 is that.
Ma'am,
Huh?
Is there some reason for its shorter length, like for antisense strand RNA?
Right, because if the antisense RNA would be longer, then in this case, so for example, in case of quali1, if the antisense RNA would have been of the same size of the RNA2, then you will not have any initiation possible. So the cell has devised a mechanism that you have some initiations possible. So it's like 1 in 20 initiations are successful in case of quali1, right? So likewise, the length of the antisense RNA is usually it's regulated, but it is not completely blocking it. Following?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in this case, class, what happens is that the origin of replication ORI-R, so the replication bubble will form at ORI-R, which is shown over here. The rep A protein will bind and will actually initiate the replication, right? But what happens is that the COP-B protein, which is transcribed by the p-COP-B promoter, this COP-B protein can bind to the promoter of rep A. The moment the COP-B, so the reason I am explaining you this mechanism now is because immediately after this I will be explaining you in detail the transcription and promoters. That is why I thought today I can take this liberty to explain you, because I'll be discussing transcription is the next step. Okay, so what happens is that the COP-B protein, which is synthesized by p-COP-B promoter, this can bind to the promoter of rep A. The moment the COP-B protein binds to the promoter of rep A, it acts as a roadblock and RNA polymerase cannot synthesize rep A mRNA, and therefore synthesis of rep A is inhibited. When the synthesis of rep A is inhibited, then rep A will not be available for initiation of replication at the ORI-R.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
The other mechanism is with the pairing of antisense RNA. So this antisense RNA actually pairs with the leader region of the rep A, and thereby again the synthesis of rep A is prevented. So leader region is the untranslated region. So this I'll be explaining you hopefully. Oh, it's 9:40. Let's see whether we can start transcription today. Otherwise we'll discuss tomorrow. So for now I hope it is clear that rep A is required for initiation of replication. Rep A binds to ORI-R and the replication bubble is formed for initiation. COP-B protein binds to the promoter of rep A. The moment COP-B binds to the promoter of rep A, it represses because it acts as a roadblock and rep A mRNA cannot be made, and therefore rep A protein will not be made. COP-A is the antisense RNA which can actually pair with the untranslated region, and thereby again the rep A synthesis will be affected. So hope it is clear.
Yes, ma'am. Clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the last one is Eteron regulated plasmids. So this mechanism actually operates for the E. coli chromosome as well. So in E. coli origin of replication, the regulation takes place by Eterons, and many low copy number plasmids, for example F and P1, they also have a copy number of 1 to 2. They also have the regulation achieved by Eterons. R6K, PSC101, RK2, RP4, they all are very low copy number plasmids, and they all are regulated by Eterons. So let us see how exactly does Eteron help in the regulation. So there are four means by which Eterons help in the regulation. So as I told you, Eterons are direct repeats. So these direct repeats are shown by these black arrowheads. So for example, in the origin region 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you see there are 5 repeats, 5 Eterons. Okay. So the first mechanism of regulation is by REP-A. So REP-A in case of P1 and DNA-A in case of E. coli origin of replication is the initiator protein, right? So first mechanism.
Ma'am,
Yes.
RIP-A is a gene or like DNA sequence or like it codes for protein, right?
Right.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
So okay, so let me explain you. So when it is a gene, when you are drawing it on a gene, you write it as REP-A and it is italicized. ठीक? When it is a protein, then you do not italicize and then capital. So this becomes protein.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Okay.
For everything. For DNA-A also, if it's a gene, you write in small, for example, small d and then NA and then A. And when it's a protein, it's DNA-A, but D becomes capital. And this rule is applicable for all the genes, whether it's insulin, whether it's whatever. ठीक?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, so let's see how iterons help in the regulation. So first is the REP-A synthesis is auto-regulated. So what do we mean by auto-regulation? So by auto-regulation, what we mean is that of REP-A. So what we mean is that REP-A is synthesized as soon as a concentration is built up, right? Some REP-A proteins will bind to its own promoter and repress further. Is it clear? So this is called auto-regulation of REP-A. So REP-A is synthesized, but as soon as a concentration is built up, for example 10 to 20 molecules, in some cases it is 8 to 10 molecules. It varies from plasmid to plasmid. It's different for E. coli chromosome as well. So the moment some concentration is built up, then some of the molecules will go and they will bind to its own promoter and then they repress any further synthesis of REP-A. So this is called auto-regulation of REP-A. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
The second one is initiator inactivation by dimerization. So what happens is that the REP-A exists as monomer, which is the initiator, but the moment the concentration of REP-A builds up, it becomes dimer, and the dimers cannot initiate replication. Dimers are inhibitors of replication. Is it clear or no?
Yes, ma'am. Clear.
Class, Bhavya, Deepak, Vishanta, Nashi.
Yes, ma'am.
Following or no?
Yes, ma'am, it's clear.
Yes.
Okay. The third possibility is initiator titration. So what happens is that uh, in the chromosome itself there are multiple sites, and onto these sites the initiator proteins can bind, and thereby the concentration available for initiation gets titrated, gets diluted down. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
The last one is what is called as handcuffing. So in this case, the origin becomes inactivated by handcuffing. So what happens is that there are two, so as a result of DNA replication, there are two copies of DNA generated, right? Now these two copies can initiate further. Like Ratnesh, you were asking why we cannot initiate further. So in this case, it can initiate further, but this initiation is inhibited because handcuffing takes place between the two replicating strands. So the two strands that have replicated They are now cross-linked. They are handcuffed with the help of the dimeric version of the initiator protein, and as a result of this, such a structure is formed which cannot open up for initiation. So these are the mechanisms which operate in all the megaplasmids, most of the megaplasmids like P1, like F, and also in case of E. coli chromosome, that the initiator protein is autoregulated. The initiator protein can exist in two different conformations, monomer and dimer. Monomer is active, dimer is actually not capable of initiating replication. The initiator concentrations can be diluted down by titration by binding to several other sites which can be generated as a result of replication, and origin can be inactivated. That means origin can be prevented from further initiation by a mechanism called handcuffing, which results in cross-linking or pairing of the two strands, and therefore the two replicated strands cannot initiate any further. Class, so hope the regulation of replication by antisense RNA and by iterons is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. So then we still have some time. So let's get the transcription part started. So because
Ma'am, I have a like a hypothetical question. Ma'am, I don't understand sometimes like how to separate, like we have megaplasmid, chromates, and chromosome and plasmid. If all those are present in just one solution, then how can we like we separate all of that? Can you like explain? Not now, like at some time. Like,
right, but you remember your question though.
okay, ma'am, I remember question. I will remember.
Okay, so let's discuss a little bit on promoters, because we were discussing all the time P1 promoter for antisense RNA, P2 promoter for the primer for replication, that was RNA2, PREP-A, which was required for the synthesis of rep protein, PCOP-B, which was required for the synthesis of COP protein. So what is P? P is actually the promoter, and promoter is required for the initiation of transcription. Promoters are required for the initiation of transcription. So let us see what is promoter. So promoter is actually a DNA sequence present upstream to the gene, and codon. So initiation codon, or let's write translational initiation codon, right? So when we talk about the length of the promoter, the length of the promoter can actually vary. It can vary from as small as maybe 60 to 70 nucleotides to as long as maybe 200 or 250 nucleotides in length. What are the components of a promoter? About the components of the promoter, so here class you need to pay a little more attention. So when we talk about the components of the promoter should have, so the promoter is numbered in minus direction. If you remember, you saw minus 20, minus 555. You remember that?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we just saw that.
What is done is the transcription initiation takes place at a sequence which is labeled as +1. Okay, so transcription initiation region, I mean the nucleotide, is labeled as +1, and any sequence upstream to this +1 is numbered in minus direction. Is it fine or no?
Yes, ma'am.
In this transcription initiation, studied transcription class before?
Yes, ma'am, we have studied.
Can
Not
you
in
tell me
detail.
what all you have studied?
We just studied the basic mechanisms.
You remember what all you have studied or no? You forgot.
Ma'am, we did not study like promoters or regulators.
Yes,
Like
ma'am.
we just studied like RNA
Transcription
polymerase and
effects.
how DNA to RNA and stuff.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am. We just know like in by transcription we can get that RNA and nothing more.
I'm going to show you how to analyze, how to identify the promoter. So, so up to here it is fine. Ki transcription initiation takes place usually at purine, which is A or G, adenine or guanine, usually. So, I mean, it's not 100%, but most of the time the initiation takes place at an A or a G. The numbering is done in such a way that the initiation sequence is numbered as +1. Okay, and after +1 there are a few bases and then there is an initiation codon. ATG is the translational initiation codon. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
+1 is for transcription start site.
Yes.
Between transcription start site and translation initiation codon, there is a sequence. So between TSS and translation initiation region that is there is called as UTR, and this is present at the 5' end, and therefore this is called as 5' UTR, and UTR is untranslated region. So the question is why this is called untranslated region or UTR, because if you see that +1 is the transcription start site, right? So that means the RNA polymerase will make the RNA from +1, correct? So that means this region is transcribed. But ATG is the place from where the protein synthesis will take place. The translation will initiate. TSS is the place where transcription will initiate. So that means the region between TSS and translational initiation codon is the region which is not translated but which is transcribed, correct? So that is why this region is called as UTR, which is untranslated region. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am,
Yes,
in
ma'am.
prokaryotes, untranslated regions is very short, like in E. coli. Untranslated regions in eukaryotes may be long.
No, let's not generalize this. So the UTR length, can vary from 6 to 7 base pairs to as long as 100 to, let's say, more than 100 pairs in prokaryotes. In eukaryotes also it is longer. Okay.
Ma'am, UTRs are considered as part of gene or not considered as part of gene. I'm
No, they
asking.
are not considered as part of gene. The gene is actually, when we talk about the gene is usually these days represented as ORF, which is open reading frame, which begins from ATG and ends with the stop codon. So this R comes in the regulatory portion of the gene.
Okay, ma'am.
Class,
Yes, ma'am. Understood.
everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So UTR, you followed? What is UTR? Okay.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
then,
Yes. Ma'am.
right. So then you got the idea of +1. So from this +1, if we count, then there is a region in the promoter which is depicted as -10, and then there is another region which is depicted -35. The class knows what is minus because the counting is now in the upstream direction. So any counting after +1 will be in the positive direction, like +10, +20, +55, and any counting before this will be in the minus direction, like -10, -35, -50, -155. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when we analyze this sequence, the -10 sequence, the -10 region is conserved, and -35 region is also conserved. What I mean by conserved is that the sequence present in -10 and the sequence present in -35 region is conserved. That means it is exactly same in most of the promoters, in most of the organisms. Okay, and this
Ma'am, one
sequence,
question. Ma'am, in this numbering, +1, -10, -35, there is zero or there is no zero?
there is no zero actually.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so then the -10 region is conserved, and this region is actually a hexamer. The -35 region is also conserved, and this region is also a hexamer. The -10 region was studied by a scientist called Pribno, and therefore this region or this sequence is also called as Pribno box. And the sequence of this Pribno box is, it is also called as data box. And the hexamer which is present in the -10 region is TATAAT. So that is why this is called as data box, and it was discovered by Pribno, and therefore it is also called as Pribno box. The -35 region is also conserved, and this is also a hexamer, and the sequence is Titicaca. So these sequences are quite conserved. Okay. So
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, but I have one question. Like in case of when we saw like Taq polymerase, it doesn't have so much like efficiency. It creates a lot of errors. Like in that cases, how like even this case these sequences like you said like these small sequences are conserved. Then how are these remain conserved? Like even in 16S RNA that encoded by a sequence, that how these sequences are conserved, like
right, so
I don't
these
understand.
sequences, no, so Ratnesh, so these sequences are conserved because, so this again goes back to your question which you were asking about the proofreading activity. So the cell has proofreading activity, point number 1. Point number 2, that there are repair mechanisms in case of any errors or in case of any damage, there are repair mechanisms, and if the cell will not do this, then the cell will lose its identity, because ultimately if everything will keep on changing class, then ultimately what will happen, you will not have the same sequence. So I think
Okay, ma'am.
do you have another
Ma'am,
class
then
now, students?
okay, ma'am.
No, I'm asking you people, do you have another class?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am, can you please upload the lecture slides?
Yes, I will do it, today itself.
Yes,